and a very, very warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining today. So today is all about milongas. So I have my notes here. I will refer to my notes. We have a lot to cover. Before we do, I would like to again to wish you a very warm welcome. Hoping that you have a very good day, and if you're here, it's probably because you're interested in what are milongas, but also if you've been to milongas, what are the tips to maximize perhaps your chances to be invited, and so on and so forth. So we are going to cover a lot of material, not only for new beginners, but also for people who have already been at milongas. And we hope that this will be very useful and will make milongas a bit more easy to approach and a bit approachable. So first of all, I'd like to present myself. My name is Bruno. I'm from the academy called Tango. You have a little picture here. And I've been myself a milonga goer for more than 25 years, but also an organizer. So I organize my own milonga. It's called Los Angelitos. It's in London. It's twice a week, Friday and Sunday. Of course, this can change. For more than 7 years, as I mentioned. So I will also give you a bit of a behind the scenes, if you like, what happens when someone organizes a milonga. So if you are someone who is thinking of organizing milonga, I also have tips for you at the end of today. So I just would like to start with a few words about what are milongas. Milongas, if you haven't been to milongas or if you just started tango, is something that you might hear, in a class perhaps, or from your teacher. Basically, milonga has two meanings. The first meaning is a type of music which is part of the tango family. So we have three, as we'll see later, three types of music in tango. We have tango, tango vals, and milonga. And without getting into too much detail, the milonga is actually older than tango and has roots around obviously Argentina, but also Brazil, and often immigration to South America. So it's actually quite an interesting topic, where the milonga is coming from, the music. And if you're interested, we have dedicated one lesson on this in the past in the library. So just have a look at Tangito's website and take a look at the library if you're interested. So this is the first meaning, the music, but also by definition, this actually means the place where one dances tango. And of course, milonga, the dance, that is actually coming with the music. So when we say, oh, I'm going to milonga tonight, it means that I'm going to dance at a tango club. So it refers to the venue. Now, if you look at the origin of the word milonga, it's a little bit unclear, but it could come from different origins. One hypothesis is that milonga means words or repetitive words, and it could be from Brazilian Portuguese or perhaps from West African languages, and it's actually referring to the place where people dance. The immigrants who actually came and actually danced together, and this is why it actually was taken into tango as well at some point. So the origin of the word milonga is a bit unclear. So this is also an interesting definition. Some people say it could also mean witchcraft. So that's actually interesting, as you can see, because it means that there's lots of history behind people dancing with the percussions, and maybe this actually led to milongas perhaps being seen as a bit of witchcraft, but who knows, this is actually not entirely confirmed. So what we will cover today, a couple of things. We'll cover the etiquettes of milongas, how to prepare for your milonga if you haven't been, or even if you have been, what to expect at a milonga, how to maximize your chances of dancing at the milonga, which is of course interesting for many people. Behind the scenes, as I mentioned, as a milonga organizer, I will share with you some tips. And of course a few things around, basically what is the culture around the milonga and why they are important. So let's start with the last point. Why are milongas important? So basically, milongas are an integral part of dancing tango. When you dance tango, when you start tango, it's of course probably because you like the dancing and maybe you like the music, but very, very quickly you realize that tango is much more than the classes that you can take or you can go to with your teacher. Very, very quickly you will hear the word milonga here and there, and if you pay attention, you'll actually realize that all these people going to milongas, it's like almost like a microcosmos. Yeah, it's like a world in itself, and it's very, very interesting. It's a very interesting place. For me, it's like a little bit of a summary of our society. What's fascinating at milongas is you have people from all places, all origins, all ages, all jobs. So you might actually dance with someone working in marketing, and then a teacher doing some research, for the NHS, and and so on and so forth. So the variety of people is absolutely amazing, and this is what makes Milonga a very, very interesting place to be. And this is also the reason this is so important for tango, is also because it's a place where one socializes. Yeah, so it's not about only dancing tango. Of course, dancing tango is a big part of it, but a very big and important point of the Milonga is this social aspect. You go there to meet your friends. It's very, very important to understand that you go there to dance, but little by little you actually develop some friendships, and the Milongas are organized and designed for people to do two things: for people to meet other people, and also for people to swap partners. So this is something that we'll go and take a look at later on today. This social aspect is one of the crucial elements of Milonga, because it means when you go to Milonga, you are very happy to see this guy or this lady that you haven't seen for a couple of weeks, you're going to dance with. So there's this kind of buzzing excitement at Milonga. It's really, really nice to see, and especially when the Milonga has a great atmosphere, it's one of the best things that you can do. What best to combine the social aspects, making new friends or meeting old friends, and dancing tango, hearing some beautiful music, and of course doing a bit of exercising, all in one. So it's actually a very, very good place to be. So how to prepare for Milonga? So this is more designed for people who haven't been to Milongas. So the first question that I always have as a tango teacher is, how much tango should I know before I join a Milonga? And this is a very valid question to ask. Unfortunately, it's not easy to answer to, because everybody has a different expectation or a different level of expectation when they go to Milonga. Some people will be feeling very, very confident to go to Milonga very quickly, and some people will feel they need much more tango before they feel confident in joining the Milonga. So the answer is, it's up to you to join the first Milonga. The first time you go to Milonga, you don't have to have a lot of tango in your shoes, but you just need to remember a couple of things. First of all, when you join a Milonga, if you join too early and you are a little bit shy in nature, then it's going to be a very, very nerve-wracking experience, because imagine you're not too sure about your tango, you have done perhaps a few months of tango, and you think that you're not there yet in terms of the command of the dance, and someone invites you like, oh, what should I do? Should I go? And of course you can always say, well, I'm a beginner, I haven't danced very, very much, but it's actually quite important to make sure that you go when you know that you will feel comfortable. Now, there's always one thing that you can do. You can always go to the teacher that is teaching tango and say, do you organize a Milonga? And if yes, can I go and just watch? And most teachers, including myself, will say, of course, feel free to join. As a matter of fact, we recommend you to join a few times before you actually dance, because you get familiar with the environment. You know what's happening, you know how people interact, you know what to expect. So it's actually a bit less intimidating than going to Milonga the first time to dance when you don't feel that you're really, really ready for it. Some people will actually go after Milongas. I have students who go to Milongas after only 3 months because I encourage them to go. And some other people will take 1 year, 1 year and a half before they even start their first Milonga, because they feel they need to be a bit better of tango. So it's entirely up to you, but always remember that you need to feel comfortable and don't push yourself too early or too much before you go, because that actually might be a bit of a traumatizing experience if that doesn't go well. So where can I find the information about going to Milongas? Of course, the first port of call is to ask to your teacher, to your local school, is there a Milonga around, in my town? Is that something that I can join? And most of the time, the tango teacher will actually know and direct you to the right Milonga. Something that you might need to know is there are different types of Milongas, in that some Milongas will be more open for people who just started, Some milongas will be more designed for people who have actually done a bit more tango. So it's always good, maybe before you go, to call the milonga and say, okay, I'm planning to come, I've just started maybe 3 months ago, 6 months ago, whatever it is, and is it okay for me to join if I'm still a beginner? And the milonga organizer should tell you, yes, it's absolutely fine, we are welcoming everyone, including beginners, and as a matter of fact, perhaps we have another room where beginners can practice if they feel a bit intimidated in the main hall, or they will say, well, this milonga is more for people who have done a bit more dancing. So it's actually always a good thing to ask. And there's another benefit in calling, is you get to know the organizer a bit better, and also you are going to have a bit more information about the location, and especially if the milonga is operating the day you want to go, because remember, as milonga organizers, we are also dependent on the venue. I'm pretty much, it's the same for pretty much everyone in the world. I'm renting a venue. It's in Angel, it's a beautiful venue, it's a church in Islington in London, and sometimes the venue is not available, so I have to cancel my milonga and say, well, this week we are closed, next week we will reopen. It can happen. Always better to check. Of course, the other option is to check Facebook. There are loads of information on Facebook if you look for the town that you live in. So something that I also want to check with you, or to actually inform, is about how to prepare for milonga, so that when you actually decided to go and that you are all ready to go. So a quick word on hygiene. It sounds obvious, but believe me, it's actually important for all organizers to mention. People should go to milonga very cleanly shaved and very nice and nicely dressed, because you are going to embrace someone very close. So body hygiene and mouth and so on and so forth is important. So a lot of dancers, for example, those who actually sweat a little bit, they are going to come with 2 or 3 shirts, and they are going to change over the course of the milonga. They also bring mouthwash and so on. So we constantly try to smell nice, look nice, for the benefit of the dancer that we are going to dance with, and share this embrace for a few songs. Not bad to actually have a bit of perfume. If you like perfume, that's actually a best place to be, or to do. And then what to bring? Should I bring drinks, clothes, shoes, and so on? Okay, a few words about this. So first of all, drinks might or might not be part of the milonga. Ask again the organizer if the milonga has a bar, and if not, is there like some kind of drink? Perhaps they offer tea or coffee, or maybe sometimes some alcohol if you want to that. Maybe it's just water. Always worthwhile to call and ask what's there, because then you know what to bring. A lot of milongas are not able to sell alcohol because that requires a license. So if you want to actually get a bottle of wine for yourself and for your friends, often it's something that you can do. So you just have to ask what is the condition of the milonga. Now when it comes to clothes and shoes, clothes in a milonga, we tend to dress up a little bit. Now we have what we call practica, which is slightly different. A milonga we'll see later is in tandas, where you have a certain set of songs which are played with a non-tango song in between. A practica might or might not be with this interval non-tango songs. Practica tend to be a little bit more relaxed. But again, something that you can ask to the organizer, okay, what's the dress code? Is there a dress code? Are people coming in jeans? In which case, if I come with a suit, I might feel a bit overdressed. Or is people coming in a more like suit and more elegant tango clothes? And on the topic of clothes, of course, it's always useful to ask, if you have just started, if there are some tango clothes shops around that you can go to. Especially for ladies, the dresses and so on have to be fit for tango. For example, they shouldn't be too long because they can actually catch the heel onto the dress and so on and so forth. For men, it tends to be a bit wider trousers, as you can see here. So it's up to you how you dress. Always a good idea to ask. In terms of shoes, of course, most of the time you need some tango shoes. And again, this is useful to ask your tango teacher if they know a tango shoe seller. Or you just ask on Google, or check on Google if there are some shoes, if there are some shoe seller doing specifically tango shoes. Be careful that tango shoes might be different from other Latin dances, so just check before you buy. And then finally, how to prepare for Milonga. The last point is, what time should I arrive? So this is a very important topic, guys. Know that if you arrive early, there will be most likely an emptier floor. Now, is it bad? Not necessarily. Actually, it could be quite good, because if you arrive early, it's possible that it's easier to invite because there's, quote, less competition if there are less people. So a lot of people who start tango should arrive very early in the Milonga. As soon as the Milonga starts, that's my recommendation, because they can get to know a bit more people, it's a bit less crowded, and therefore it's easier to meet people, to chat, and maybe to do a few dances. There's plenty of space on the dance floor before it gets crowded, because the more crowded it gets, the more tricky it is to dance, of course. So if you have more space, it's easier for you beginners, so my recommendation, arrive early. Now, a lot of the more advanced, as we call them, milongueros or milonga goers, are going to arrive later. So if the milonga, let's say, is from 8 to 12, the milonga, the usual milonga goers, or the milongueros and milongueras, are not going to arrive before 9. This is not a rule, it's just, a little rule of thumb, if you like. It's just because they wait a little bit so that people can arrive, and they also wait for their friends to arrive as well. So don't forget that in Argentina, of course, if you go to a party, not a milonga, not a tango party, but a normal party, and the party starts at 7, it's very seldom that people arrive at 7 p.m. They would probably arrive at 7:30 or 8, depending on the person, unless, of course, there is something happening like a concert, in which case you have to be on time. But if it's like a party at home, they would arrive a bit later, so this is quite expected, and same goes for the milonga. So don't arrive too early if you want to have a kind of crowded floor, if you like a lot of people around you. If not, then definitely arrive early. And also, if you are one of these milongueros, you'll actually know that if you stay until the very end atmosphere is very special. How? Because it's a bit less crowded again. So if you like, the milonga floor is going to get from not crowded because it just started to perhaps crowded, and at the end, maybe half an hour before, something like that, or 45 minutes depending on the length of the milonga, is going to be less crowded again. People may be catching their tube, catching their taxi, especially if it's a late night. And this is where you have perhaps one of the best dances, because people are starting to be a bit more relaxed, they enjoy the last songs, the last tangos, and somehow it's a bit magical. This moment just before it finishes has something special. So my recommendation, I know it's late, but is to try to stay until the very end, because sometimes something happens a bit special. So this is how to prepare for milonga, but how to operate at milongas is going to be my next topic. And I'm going to have a quick look at questions, if any. Okay, so feel free to ask questions. We are covering a lot of information, but it's going to be easy for you. It's going to be possible for you to ask questions in the feed if you are in front of your computer or your screen. So how to operate at milongas? So first of all, one thing that you might want to do is to ask the person at the till where they can change. It might be at the toilet, perhaps sometimes it's at the toilet, but sometimes there's a separate room where you can change. You can maybe put a different shirt, you can do this and that. So always useful to ask. It's not often the case that you change in the hall itself, because of course people are dancing, so it doesn't offer a lot of privacy. So ask the person at the till that is welcoming you to the milonga. And also something that you can ask when you arrive is the chair policy. Some milongas will say one chair is for one person, you can't mix and match, you can't change the chairs. Some other milongas will be very open and very flexible. You sit where you like, and it's not like you have a reserved seat. If you go and you might actually lose your seat because it's a bit more like relaxed. Perhaps there are more chairs around, so the milonga has more capacity. Whereas if it's a reserved seat policy, then you might actually have your seat and you might have to stay there. So in terms of reservation, always useful if you call ahead to say, okay, if you're coming with 4, 5 or 6 friends, can I book a table? Not all milongas will be able to offer this facility, but it's useful to ask in case you want to stay together. One little thing I want to say, a little tip. Always be nice and polite to the person at the till or the people welcoming you. Why? The people at the till are almost never just people who are not dancing tango, who are just hired by the milonga organizer to be at the till. They're often friends, actual people dancing tango and so on, and it's very likely that the person at the till happens to be a very good tango dancer. So I'm just saying, but always a good idea to be polite and so on, because this person might actually be your next partner in the milonga. So, and also of course, these people at the till organizing have a lot of work to do to make sure that the milonga is happening, is actually organized well and tidy and so on and so forth. So they have a bit of stress sometimes. So always a big smile when you arrive, and you actually feel very, very welcome if you do so. So before you even start dancing, one piece of recommendation which will help you a lot is, and this is again my advice, is look around on the dance floor. Do not jump into dancing unless you are absolutely desperate to start because the floor is empty and you know that the window of opportunity is a bit small. But basically, my recommendation to you guys is you are going to go to milonga to have your seat, you sit down, you relax, and then start looking at the dancers. Yes, so try to see who is actually dancing and how, and try to assess, it's not always easy, but who is roughly at your level. Now this is important because there is a bit of a myth in tango that it's always better to dance someone who's much better than you. The problem is it doesn't really work because for two reasons. First of all, it might not be the expectations of the person dancing with you if he's much more advanced. And also, the problem is the person dancing a bit of a more advanced tango might actually do combinations that you don't know, or maybe we actually will use more speed, more displacements, or even technique that you haven't seen, such as, I don't know, Volcada, Colgada, whatever you name it. And it will actually put you in a bit of a stress, so you will not enjoy the dance very much. So the best advice I can give to every milonga organizer, to every milonga goer, is to dance with someone who's roughly at the level. You can go from, what kind of steps they use, what is their technique, that, okay, maybe it looks like this person has started recently or not, and it's actually much easier to dance this way. So this is something that you should always think about. Okay, now, a few things about maximizing your chances of dancing. So, lots of it, of course, is common sense, but you'll see that sometimes you don't think about it and you might forget, so always good to repeat. The body language is crucial. If you are sitting at your desk and you are like this, your chances of being invited are not going to be very high. Remember, tango is nothing more and nothing less than a microcosmos of society. So these are actual people. Yes, they dance tango like you, but they're actual people and they will enjoy the dance if they see that this person is nice and open and friendly, and having like this kind of body language is not going to help. Okay? So always have an open body, so open your arms, be present, be a little bit forward with the chest when you're sitting and not completely kind of relax in your chair, because that again, if you're completely relaxed in your chair with your back like this, then it's not going to project the desire that you have, that you want to dance now. If you're ready to go, you're a bit forward, your legs are a little bit forward as well, you're telling the room around you, okay, I'm ready to dance. Okay, so this is something that you might want to think about, and I'm going to tell you how to invite in a second, but basically I'd like to finish about the tips on how to maximize your chances of being invited. So openness is always going to be a big plus when you are at the milonga. Smile, chit chat, shake hands, say hello to people, because this will actually be having a big influence on this kind of possibility to be invited. One thing that you also should avoid doing is, once you start dancing, is to not say thank you before the tanda is over. I'm going to say a few words about the tanda later, so bear with me. but at the end of every song, don't thank, because it means thank you, bye bye, I had enough. So I'm going to say when is it okay to break a tanda. It's a bit of an emergency case. It's not used very often and should be only used when you really have no choice. But don't thank before the tanda is over, only thank the person that you dance with after the end of the tanda, before you go back to your seat. Of course, a bit of a common sense thing to do, but you should actually make or keep contacts. You dance with someone who was very nice to you and you have a good connection, you enjoyed your time. Why not keep in contact? You know, now with Facebook, WhatsApp, you name it, it's so easy to keep contact, so that the next time it's so easy to actually send a little message saying, oh, I'm going to that milonga tonight, are you? And therefore, once you arrive at the milonga, suddenly you have at least one partner who you know is going to dance with you. And remember, people are going to watch people dancing as well, so the first tanda, the first time that you are going to dance, is always a little bit the trickiest because people haven't seen you dancing. So it's always a good idea to come with a friend to the milonga, so that you know that the first couple of tandas you are going to have a partner, and then things will go naturally forward. And something that you can do as well, of course, is make Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups and keeping people updated. It's possible that your teacher has a WhatsApp or Facebook group organized for the milonga. Ask, you know, can I be on that group, please, because I'd like to see the updates. Maybe I can say, I'm going there tonight, anyone else is coming, maybe you want to partner with someone, or maybe you want to drive to the location, you have a car, and it's always a very good idea to say, I'm going from this place to that place, anyone who wants to come with me in my car, you know, please, you're welcome to, because it's going to create, of course, a very nice link with that person, and then it's so much easier to invite that person later on and dance together. And I see that there was a question on the screen. Let me finish this point here. One very, very interesting point or advice I would like to cover is very useful to join the lesson before the milonga. So this is just because if you join the lesson, if there is a lesson of course, before the milonga, you're going to naturally rotate in the lessons. You're going to dance with lots of different people. That means that you have danced with these people, and most likely some of these people will have had a good experience with you. So it's so much easier later on to say, hey, you know, how have you been, you know, since the lesson? If you haven't seen this person for an hour, would you like to dance? It's so much easier if you know this person already, if you've danced already. So the lesson is a big, big opening, or big facilitator, I should say, for these invitations to happen, or maybe to make it easier to invite yourself. One thing that happens at some milongas is some milongas will be a bit more relaxed into who can invite. So some milongas will say, you know, ladies and gentlemen alike can invite, or I should say leader can invite regardless of the gender, or follower can invite. So some milongas will actually do it this way, whereas some milongas will be following the traditional model, which is leaders invite and followers expect the invitation. Needless to say, it's not always easy to invite, so that's why some followers would prefer to be invited, but sometimes it's okay to go and very, very gently invite. I'm going to cover the invitation in a second. And finally, how to create a better experience of the dancing when you dance with someone, assuming that you've been invited. Well, simple. Before you even dance, you go to the floor, you build basically your posture, but before you even embrace, you're going to chit-chat. Now, if you've been to Buenos Aires, you will know that in Buenos Aires, and perhaps in other places, of course, not only Buenos Aires, but in Argentina and around, they spend a lot of time chatting before they start dancing. This for two reasons. First of all, to create a rapport with the person that you're going to dance with. If you've never met this person before, you just invited. This person just came for the first time to the milonga, so you don't know how they are. So, knowing the name, where they're from, and so on and so forth, having a bit of a chit-chat will always break the ice. And of course, there is also the additional reason that during that short period, it could be 30 seconds, 40 seconds of chit-chat, you will be able to also listen as a leader to the song a bit more. So it will give you lots of information in terms of the rhythm, the style, and therefore your dance will get better because you have some information rather than quick, let's start and let's dance straight away. Yeah, so this is always something to remember. Chit chat, couple of moments, maybe 30 seconds, maybe not more, with your partner before you start the tango. So let me, before I cover how to invite someone, let me have a look at the question. So, the question is, if you're a recent Milonga goer, what would you pay attention to when watching other dancers and invite them? That's a very good question. So, when you go to Milonga, if it's your first time, look at a couple of things for when people are dancing. First of all, we are going to cover this later, look at the embrace. Are they opening or closing the embrace? If they are closing the embrace straight away, and if it looks very, very solid, it's already a sign that the person dancing tango is perhaps a little bit more advanced. Someone who actually keeps the embrace always a bit open is often a sign that the person hasn't danced that much. Okay, so this is one thing that you can do. Look at the legs, look at the posture. The posture also has a big thing, like it's a big telltale. It's a big indicator of how the person dances. If you see the person going a bit up and down, maybe forward and backwards and sideways, perhaps the posture is not very, very fixed yet, so this person perhaps is still working on their technique, whereas if someone is very stable and looks always stretched and elegant, if you like, quite elegant, then it means that perhaps the technique is a bit more advanced. Of course, also look at the steps and sequencing being used. If you are unable to recognize any of the sequences that this person is dancing, it's a big indicator again that the person might be a bit too advanced, and therefore it might not be the best idea to invite this person. So, how to invite? Now this is getting fun. You're at a Milonga, you change your shoes, you put a bit of perfume, you're ready to dance, you're getting excited, you looked at the room, okay, you kind of understand who is doing what, so you have a few people in mind that actually seem to be roughly your level. How do you invite? So, actually I'm going to show you this. It's a bit of a joke. So I'll let you read a few seconds. All right. So, of course this is a bit of a joke, but the word being used here is cabeceo, or sign of the head. So this is how it's been designed, how to invite someone to the Milonga. Again, always a very good idea to ask the person at the till or the organizer, how are people inviting? Is it with using the cabeceo, or is it a bit more relaxed? Is it, with a different way? Always a very useful thing to do. So, the cabeceo, how does it work? Let me put this here and I'll show you. Right. So, cabeceo, the sign of the head invitation, is something which is a real part of tango. Very, very important to understand how it works and how to use it. So, let's assume that the leader is inviting the follower. Let's assume that the Milonga is a usual traditional Milonga where we use the cabeceo. The leader and the follower are going to potentially be sitting at different places. So I'm sitting here on my chair. I have no chair here, but you can imagine. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to be scanning the room to see who to invite. Now, very, very important for followers. It doesn't matter if it's a lady or gentleman. So, followers, always do that. If you look at your feet, it will not happen. Yeah, so you need to establish eye contact. So the cabeceo is through eye contact. The lady or the follower is going to scan the room, and the leader is going to do the same. And hopefully, we are going to lock gaze. You are interesting for me to invite, and I'm interesting for you to invite. So, we are going to look at each other. And then the leader will initiate the invitation. You will have a little nod of the head, like this. Okay? The follower will answer not or keeping the gaze, if you like, with the same signal, a little bit of a nod of the head, like this. Okay, that means yes, I have accepted your invitation. Now the leader will confirm, just to be sure, with the last nod of the head, and will stand up from his chair and will go to the follower. Now, something that is important to understand here is when you stand up and you go towards your follower, as much as you can, it's not always possible, but as much as you can, keep your gaze on the follower, so that as you reach the follower, you stand in front of her, you are still looking at her in the eyes. Why? Because if it's busy, and I'm sure it happened to a lot of people, including myself, you watch someone and the room is a bit dark perhaps, so it's not very clear where you look. Plus, I have one big problem, I have glasses, so sometimes there's a bit of a glare. Okay, but let's not go there, just for the funny little detail. So I look at the lady, I go to the lady, and as I arrive, two ladies stand up. Trouble, because my gaze was not precise enough to say, actually, I would like to invite you, but not you. So this is why, up to the very last moment, look in the eyes. So if someone else was looking at you and thought they were inviting you, they know actually it's not for them, and there is no hard feeling because they will not stand up, and they will just continue looking around for another partner. So this is why you always keep your gaze, your look with the partner until the very moment here. Now what happens then is that you're going to be standing in front of your partner. She will stand up, hopefully. If not, then maybe maybe she wants to chat, I don't know. But no, most likely she will stand up, and then you are going to enter the floor. Now the floor is behind you because this is maybe the chair area where people are sitting, and this is where you have the second cabeceo to do. So this is not something that is done at every single milonga, but a lot of them. Because remember that if it's busy and you embrace your partner and you just go backwards without looking, you might hit someone. So it's always a good idea as a leader to do a cabeceo to the next leader. So the leader who is on your right hand side, right here, the lady is here, let's say you're a gentleman, you invite a lady, and there's a couple not too far. What are you going to do? You're going to look at the man and do a little sign saying, can you actually make sure that in the next couple of seconds you don't feel the gap that is around me here, because I'm going to get into the flow. Yes, do not get straight into it without looking, because by the time you go back, the couple might also go forward and you might actually hit them. Yeah, so always important to cabeceo the leader. Okay, thank you very much, that works. And he will probably keep on dancing but not moving, so that you keep this area safe for you. You come in and here you go, you embrace, and perhaps you can start dancing or doing whatever you have in mind. Yeah, so this is the cabeceo number 2. Excellent. Of course, I need to cover what to do for the follower to say no. Now, before I do so, I need to say that the cabeceo is a genius invention. Imagine, you're in a milonga, there is no cabeceo, okay? You are going to this lady, you really don't want to dance with her, you really want to dance with her, okay? People around this lady are watching, or maybe watching around. You go to this lady and you say, oh, would you like to dance please? And she says, no. And then you're sitting like here, you're standing like here, like very embarrassed, because she just declined, and then the worst thing that could happen is that, okay, how about you? And this lady here will say no. Why? Because she doesn't want to be choice number 2. She wants to be choice number 1. It's human nature, it's normal. Everybody would actually operate the same. So you are going to be very likely to have refusals after refusals, and then you go back to your seat. But the cabeceo is very discreet, so nobody really knows who's saying what, who's saying no to whom. Therefore, it preserves, if you like, the pride of the leader and the follower if things don't go well, because it's very discreet. So, a genius invention. And also, I believe it was invented, early Tango age, so early, when it started in the halls, just to make sure that the leader wouldn't be too much for the follower, because sometimes some ladies would be a bit shy to say no, but they don't really want to dance with this guy. So the guy coming and, hey, you want to dance? And they were like, okay, but it's not something that they want to do. So they also, to protect the follower, is actually something that has been designed so that they can easily say no. So how do you say no? It couldn't be simpler. I'm the leader, you're the follower here, remember? I invite you with the head. You don't answer to it, you just look around, look at your shoes, have a drink, look at your phone. Phone is not my recommendation because, in my opinion, it always destroys a little bit the atmosphere in Milongas, all people on their phones. That's my opinion. If you go to Milonga, don't use your phone. Or at least you can look around, look up, look down, wherever, but not look at the guy, so that is a clear signal that I'm not interested, no thank you, okay? And the person who actually invited unsuccessfully, so okay, fine, I invite someone else. So you start the gaze search again, and maybe, okay, this person here, fine, it works, okay? So this is something that you should keep in mind. It's okay to say no, and this, the way to say no is just to ignore, if you like, the invitation, look around, stop looking at the person who invited you. So if you are inviting someone and if you have chosen to invite by walking to this person, make it really, really soft for this person. In other ways, if you decide to use your voice and not the cabeceo to invite someone, leave the door open for this person to say no. Yes, this is very important for me to mention, because it's always a little bit embarrassing if the person is too insisting. Yes, if someone is coming and like, okay, come on, let's go, come, let's dance. It's not something that you should do. Always be as light as you can and let the person decide if he or she wants to dance or not. And same for the ladies. Is for me, in my milonga, I welcome ladies to invite leaders. That's my choice. But the ladies should operate with the same rules. If they feel the leader is a bit like, I'm not sure, then it's better not to insist. Maybe the leader is tired, maybe he has other plans. So that's something that you might want to do. So let's carry on to what happens once you've invited. So you are in front of your partner, you did a little cabeceo to that person here, right? And you're ready to enter the floor. What happens? Okay. The first signal that will be important is the embrace. So you build your posture, remember all the technique that you did with your teacher. Nice posture, hips a little bit back, and so on and so forth, shoulders down. And then you're going to, as a leader, start initiating, if you want to close the embrace, with a little bit of a leaning forward. Now, the follower will have the choice to close or not the embrace. And this is something that we as leaders have to accept. The follower has the choice, ultimate choice, to say, actually, yes, I would like to close the embrace, in which case she goes forward and she closes the embrace, or if she prefers to keep it open because maybe she's a bit unsure, she's never danced with you, and maybe I'm not sure there's a reason, whatever it is, then she will do one thing, which is not go around, so with this arm, around here on the back, but perhaps put a hand on your arm. And that actually keeps the embrace open. Do not force the embrace closed, leaders. If you feel that the follower is keeping the embrace open, she has a reason. And we need always to be very, very respectful and make sure that the lady has the best experience possible dancing with us. If she wants to keep the embrace open, so be it. Likewise, I think for followers, if the leader is kind of trying to keep it open, do not force the embrace closed. Again, it's better to actually keep the embrace open if you think, one of you think it's the best choice for the couple. So different types of embraces. You have very close embrace, perhaps sometimes called milonguero. This is something that we covered completely with technique as well. Have a look at the library, salon versus milonguero if you're interested. Tango salon is a bit more flexible, still closed, where you have a bit of flexibility inside the embrace. And this is something that you would feel when the person is embracing you. So one thing that you should always do as leaders and followers, always respond to the signals that the other person is giving the embrace. If the person wants to bit of a loose embrace, do not force it very, very close because it might not be comfortable for them. How close should be the contact when you start dancing? That's a very, very good question. So we had a look at close or open embrace, but there's one part which is the head, and this is almost like a topic in itself, but I'm going to cover it in about 10 seconds, or maybe 15, not long at all. So the head is not part of the embrace, so be careful leaders, you're inviting someone, no, yeah, this stays in its alignment, you stay straight to the head, and if it has contact here, it's only when you go forward and there's a bit of a forward posture. For example, you're dancing something very heavy like a pugliese, and you want to have this drama, so you're like, oh, ta, 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 ta. So in this case, the head will naturally be forward, and therefore you might have contact with the head of the follower. Be careful that neither follower or leader should start the embrace with the head and start pushing with the head, because it's not very pleasant. Again, the head is not part of the embrace, it's just a consequence of the posture, and this is very important to keep in mind. So if you don't have face contact, no problem, it's not, again, a big issue, and it shouldn't be actually making you uncomfortable. One more thing, the famous Ronda. The Ronda is how we dance Tango at a Milonga. So we're all going to leave space to the next couple. So the next couple in front of us, and perhaps of course behind us, but in front of us for me, I'm responsible to keep that space a bit open, unless it's completely overpacked, but then it actually happens not that often that it's so packed that you don't even have the space for the embrace. But as a leader, my responsibility, and it's not the followers, the responsibility of the leader is to take enough space to have 2 steps between you and the next couple. Why? Because let's say I'm here and the next couple is here, they are allowed to do 1 step back and I'm allowed to do 1 step forward. So therefore, if we both have the same idea at the same time, I go forward and they go back, we don't clash onto each other. If I was very close to them and they start going back, then I might be in trouble. So something to keep in mind, 2 steps is the best distance to keep to the next couple in front of you. And of course, you might want to assume that the person behind you is the same. One more thing, in La Ronda, we are not going to overtake. As much as possible, stay in your lane. Do not go around unless the couple has been dancing for a very long time without moving. 45 seconds, 1 minute doing hero, 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 and nobody's moving because of them. Yes, you might actually start to overtake, but that's a bit of an extreme case. Try to actually stay behind the couple that you are following and keep the flow going. So very, very important to remember, in La Ronda, you need to make sure that you are keeping the flow going. That means if you have a gap that is starting to be created between you and the couple in front, fill the gap. Yes, so remember to keep the 2-step distance, of course, but do not keep this huge space here available too long. Okay, if it's available, start closing the gap so that the person behind you can start also moving, and therefore the flow of the milonga stays uninterrupted. Of course, it's quite obvious, but the busier the milonga, the less movement there will be. I've been at milongas, and I'm not even exaggerating, where a full tango song, which is roughly 3 minutes, depends on the song, 2.5 or 3, I've only done perhaps 5 meters distance, or 4. That's it, because it was so packed that everything was really, really small. But most of the time, you'll be in a normal milonga, and you need to keep that flow going so that it's enjoyable for everyone and you don't get the lane completely stuck because you keep on going on the same spot. La Ronda is the name of this circle, so we all go counterclockwise. Be very, very careful, leaders, that you're not starting to go against the flow. Remember, you have an allowance of 1 step to the back, but that's it. You are not going to start going against the flow. You are going to keep that ronda counterclockwise. It's a bit of a highway code, if you like, and we all go happily in the same sense of rotation. So very, very important for you to keep in mind, to keep the flow going, and ideally keep your lane. So the lane is basically the lane you have taken. Most of the people will want to take the outer lane. because two reasons. First, it has more room to navigate, and two, in the outer lane, you are visible to the people sitting, therefore, especially as a follower, you'll be able to get more invitations if you are more visible. People will see, oh, she's a very nice dancer, so they will want to invite you. If you're in the middle, it's not a big problem, but you'll be much less visible. This is why the middle is a bit less desirable in a milonga, and more people will want to stay on the outer rim, if you like, yeah? So once you are in a line of dance, do not constantly navigate between lanes, because remember, especially if you start navigating, there might be another person here, another couple, who's using this lane. So not a good idea to start invading them, because it might not plan for you to suddenly take their space. Make sure that you stay in your lane and you keep the flow going in the milonga. So this is called a ronda, and it's very, very important in tango. As a matter of fact, a lot of teachers, including myself, work with our group to practice this ronda so it feels more and more comfortable and more natural to actually apply this principle so that people at the milonga don't clash into each other. And this is something that will actually also show your milonga skills. So if you are more experienced, that you'll be able to have more. Basically, it's going to be easier for you to go around la ronda without too much problems. If it's your first time, you might want to stand in the middle because you don't really worry so much about being visible. You want to have a bit more space, and this is also one reason people who have less experience tend to be more in the center because there is more space. It's less scary, and people with more experience tend to be on the outer rim where there's less space because they have more experience in managing the space. So, one question that I might ask you is, do you know how many tandas is possible to dance with someone? So, there is no rule. If you come with your own partner, you dance as much as you like with the person you came with. Now there is a bit of an unspoken rule of thumb. Again, it's not a rule, it's just a rule of thumb. It's okay most of the time to dance twice in a row, two tandas, and I'm going to define what is a tanda in a moment. Two tandas in a row is better, and then have a little break, let that person dance with someone else before you invite. Yeah? So this is something that you should keep in mind. Try not to keep that person too long to yourself, because other people might want to dance with that person. And also the person, if she's a bit shy, for example, if she's a lady and you're the one inviting, she might not say no to the next tanda. Yeah? So always make sure that you give a bit of room for the follower, and she can also enjoy other dances with other dancers. And then one little thing to mention as well is after you finish your milonga, and this is a little tip, to make sure that you start actually having a bit of a connection with that milonga. If you stay till the end, it's good practice to help the milonga staff to clean up. Remember, most of the milonga staff are just people like me and like you perhaps. They are volunteering most of the time, and therefore for them to bring back the chairs, I'm going to tell you a little bit how milonga works later. It's heavy, it's difficult, they're tired, so it's actually doesn't hurt for all milonga people who are there to bring a few chairs back to where they are and so on, and maybe to help clean up a bit so that it's easier for them. So just keep it in mind. So I'm going to open an entirely new chapter, which is, I call it behind the scenes. You know, how does a milonga work? But give me 1 second, I'm going to have a sip of water and we continue on behind the scenes. Interesting topic. So far, Tango friends, we have covered how to prepare for milonga, how to maximize our chances of dancing, where to change and so on and so forth, and how to start dancing at the milonga, including the invitation, and even what to do when you are there until the end. So behind the scenes is a bit of a few things that you might want to know so that you know what to expect when you go to milonga. So I talked a lot about tandas, so let me explain a little bit how the music at the milonga is structured. Remember, a milonga is often a place where we dance only tango. It's possible that some milongas will have a bit of a mix where there is a bit of tango and then later on there will be a bit of salsa perhaps, or a bit of something else. But most milongas are going to be focusing on tango. Of course, it's important to understand the structure of the milonga because you know what to expect and how to get ready for it. So in terms of the music, remember we have three types of music: tango, tango valse, or sometimes called valse, and milonga. If you started tango recently, you probably have only worked with tango. If you've done tango a bit longer, then you will actually understand that you can work after a while on your valse and milonga skills. They are like slightly different music and technique and styles. I'm not going to cover this now because it will be too long. If you're interested, again in the library we have this covered this in detail, how to adapt your technique and style to the valse and to the milonga. But what you need to do is to start understanding the time signatures of the three. Tango is very rhythmical in nature. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Doesn't matter if it's a fast tango or slow tango, it's always going to be very continuous, if you like. The valse is going to be very different. It's going to be sets of 3. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So it feels very, very rounded. Of course, it's coming from the Venice balls, as you might expect. So you want to do many heroes and turn around each other and so on, have a continuous movement. And of course, the milonga is based on different rhythm. The time signature influenced by the habanera, which has syncopation, which will be pam, ta-tam, pam, pam, ta-tam, pam, pam. So this syncopation is the signature of the milonga. So this is how you recognize them. It's not easy at first, but it's important to actually look around to see who is actually dancing. Often at milongas, the valse and the milonga are a bit less quiet, a bit more quiet on the dance floor. Less people want to dance it because they haven't really started to learn just yet. So when you start and invite someone, and this is going back to the invitation, always wait for the song to start. Never invite before the first song starts because you don't know what is going to be played. And also it shows that you have not a lot of experience, because I, as a tango dancer and a tango teacher, I will invite someone only if I know that I like the orchestra, I like the song. Yes, I'm not going to invite at any cost. If I don't like the song for any reason, or maybe I'm just tired, I would like to rest it, I'm going to wait to hear a little bit of the song, and then, okay, I like this one, great, I'm going to invite someone. So that actually also shows your milonga experience when you do the actual invitation. So the way we structure as a DJ the music is we're going to do sets of milonga, valse and tangos. Sets are called tandas. A tanda is a set of a certain number of tandas, of tangos, milongas and valse. Traditionally, you have 4 tangos in a tanda of tango, you have 3 in a tanda of valse, and you have 3 in a tanda of milonga, and you are going to do 2 sets of tangos, 1 of valse, 2 sets of tangos, 1 of milonga, and repeat from the start. Now this is not a rule, it's just a bit of the tradition, and often, sometimes, as I DJ also for my milonga, I'm going to adapt a little bit according to the mood on the floor. If I see that when I do a milonga, nobody's leaving their chair for some reason, then maybe I'm going to space out the milongas a bit more so that I don't actually get everyone out for the full tanda. So this is something that happens. Some milonga organizers like to shorten the tanda of tango because they think 4 songs is a bit too long. Remember that when you invite someone at the beginning of a tanda, you are expected to finish the tanda. So now this is very, very important. Always finish the tanda, because breaking the tanda in the middle and say, okay, I had enough, is, as I mentioned earlier, a very, 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 very strong signal. It means something is really broken. It can happen, in my opinion, only one case. For example, the follower is feeling hurt because the leader is too rough in his lead, or maybe is pressing too much and it starts to be feeling painful. So in this case, followers, really you should say, okay, well, I'm sorry, but I think I'm going to stop here. This is something that can happen, but as much as you can, followers and leaders finish the tanda, because this is like a little contract that you have with your dancer. even if things don't go exactly the way you want them to go. Yeah, it's such an act of politeness, and also the fact that you're going to often be surprised that maybe one tango doesn't really work, and then suddenly the second one, okay, she's better, and third one, even better. So do not quote judge too much or too quickly your dancer. Leave the time actually to play its role, and give the chance to your dancer to actually synchronize with you as well. Yeah, so this is something that is important. So try to always finish the tanda. Between two tandas, we have what we call a cortina, means curtain, which is a non-tango song. I'm going to come back to the cortina in a second, but it's actually used to break the couples, actually for the couples to go back to the chairs. So leaders, very important. You finish the tanda, you hear the cortina, so it's a non-tango song, could be anything. What do? You thank the person, it was lovely dancing with you, thank you so much, it was great, I hope we can dance again in the future, chit-chat, whatever, for a few seconds, and then always take back the follower to their seats. There, and come back to yours. So something that doesn't cost very much, but always is very, very useful to do, and as I said, makes it very, very pleasant for the follower. So when we build a set of tangos, a tanda, as a DJ of tango, and as I said, I'm also DJing at MILONGAS, we always try to look for continuity in the tanda. So I'm going to look for not only the same orchestra, but perhaps the same orchestra with the same singer on the same period of time. Because remember, someone like Di Sarli, Pugliese, Fresedo, they've actually worked for a long time, and what they did at the beginning and at the end might actually sound completely different. Yeah, the style, the sound, it looks so different because they evolved, of course, in their careers. So it's very, very important when you are building a set of tandas that the style is homogeneous, because when, as a leader, I'm inviting someone for the tanda, I can only know what is the first song being played. Remember, I'm going to wait a bit. I'm going to listen to the song. Okay, I like it, fine. Oh, it sounds like whatever Fresedo. I like it, okay. Sounds like this and that. You invite. And if suddenly the orchestra is changing and the style is changing completely, it's very difficult. It's not what you signed up for. Yeah? So as a DJ, we have the responsibility to make it comfortable for the dancers to have some kind of continuity in the tanda. And as I said, I like when it's the same era, roughly the same years, more or less, and the same singer, because that offers some continuity. Sometimes we can mix singers a bit if they have the same style and the same tone. So, tandas, cortina. The cortina itself can be anything, and this is where the ingenuity and the creativity of the DJ will actually be very important. If you want something a bit punchy, you can use rock and roll, you can even use R&B, anything you like, or sometimes something a bit more traditional. If you want this kind of traditional feel, sometimes I like my milonga to feel like a bit like 1930s, 1940s, the golden age of tango. So I'm going to play perhaps a bit of Frank Sinatra, a bit of this and that. It's not tango, but it feels like it's homogeneous with the overall atmosphere. And the milonga, the dance being a bit quicker, then maybe after the milonga it's probably better to cool down a bit. So you're not going to play something really, really wow, harsh, like Metallica, maybe, I don't know, if you're into that, why not? Just after milonga, because it's too much. You need people to cool down, breathe, and then get ready for the next tanda. So this is how you create an atmosphere in the milonga to make it welcoming and interesting for everyone. So this is very, very important here. As an example, this Sunday is Halloween. I'm going to play Halloween songs. Why not? Try to work the room with your creativity as a DJ if you are interested in DJing. Now, in terms of preparing the room, this is behind the scenes. Prepare the room. The milonga organizer is going to try to create a bit of an atmosphere, with the tables, with the chairs, and you'll be surprised how much of a different impact it has depending on how the layout of the room. Yes, if you have the chairs around, if you have little islands of pockets of chairs around the little table, it's going to create something different out of the atmosphere. And this is something that, as milonga organizers, are always trying to play with, to see what is the best response from milonga goers. So one thing as a milonga goer, milongero, that you could do is always give feedback when you come back, when you leave the milonga, saying it was great. You know, I found that it was a bit harder to invite than usual for some reason, maybe for this or that reason. Have you thought of that? So always, don't hesitate to give your feedback to whomever is creating the milonga. Some milonga will have cakes, like the one I organized, some drinks, as I mentioned, bar or not, this we covered already, and even some milongas, and I have an example of one milonga, for example, in Buenos Aires. They will even go as far as to split leaders and followers, leaders on one side, followers on the other side, so this is not fixed, it's not mixed, so often it will mean men on one side and ladies on the other side, and actually the idea is to facilitate the cabeceo. Of course, it creates a very, very different atmosphere. So it's not the cup of tea of everyone, but it's actually something which is very interesting to try, perhaps. Now, behind the scenes, is a quiet milonga a bad place to be? This is something that, especially, I hear sometimes, oh, I went to this milonga, it was not very busy, so I was a bit disappointed. As I always say, sometimes you can have the best time of the year, maybe not the year, but you can have a great time at a milonga which is a bit less full, because a milonga which is less full is much easier to invite. There's less competition, so it's much easier to go around, invite, and so on, and people seem to be a bit more relaxed because there's not this kind of tension perhaps in the air that you find when the milonga is very, very busy. So a quiet place for milonga is not always a bad thing. It's actually sometimes could be the start of a great relationship we have with someone, like a great partner dancer. So to finish, I'd like a few tips for wannabe organizers. So if you need help for DJing, feel free to contact me. I'll be happy to share some tips. There are also some TDJs, as we call them, Tango DJs, who actually are organizing online seminars to actually create like your tanda and the cortina. So they will explain the tips, what works and maybe what works a bit less, giving that, of course, it's always up to you because it's your style, your creativity that is going to be the most important factor in that milonga. Running a place, renting a place and putting tango songs is not the difficult part. The difficult part is creating that atmosphere, and this is where you need to really bring your own personality into the mix. So you can also check the website. My website is Tanguito, it's right here. And one thing that I learned over time is that the venue is going to have to be relatively easily accessible. So if it's too far, people will start to make sure maybe not come as far as easily as is close to a tube station, for example, or bus or whatever it is, or availability of parking. All these little details will add up to if they want to join. And something which is interesting, I used to create or to run milongas in pubs, but pubs are perhaps not the best place because pubs are learning that the milonga goers, the milongueros, are not drinking alcohol very much. Remember that pubs make their money with cocktails and alcoholic drinks because it's more expensive, but most people in milongas, they will want water, maybe tea, maybe juice, maybe Coke, and it's not very expensive. So a lot of pubs afterwards say, you know what, it's not really worth it, so be careful if you are thinking of contacting a pub to rent the space, that you really are aware that that might happen, that the pub after a while might say, not working for me, we don't make enough money from drinks. Yeah, so this is something to keep in mind. So I hope this was very, very useful, and there's a lot to say, but to finish and to conclude today, I would like to say, do go to milongas, try them, they are extraordinary. Tango is about dancing, it's about the music, it's about the culture, it's about the milongas. This is why you make friends, this is why we all dance tango. And it's fabulous that to understand that you go to milonga in the most remote place. I've been to milongas in Japan, in Vietnam, in very small countries as well, in Europe, and I didn't even speak the language in China, and I went there and something magical happens. You meet people, you can't talk with them because they don't speak English perhaps, you don't speak their language, it doesn't matter, because you dance with them and the language of tango is extraordinary, and actually this connection is something that we really, really are grateful for, and we are really, really so lucky to have in tango. So Thank you very much for watching today. We hope it was useful, and check our website if you are wondering about classes. We have a full online library with lots of topics covered, including of course dancing and technique. Thank you very much, and see you soon at the Milonga perhaps. Bye!